Goblins are one of the staples of villainy in pretty much any fantasy setting, so let's learn a little bit more about them in today's Monster Monday. Welcome back, fellow Game Masters. I'm Richard Quiner, and today's Monday, so that means it's Monster Monday, and today we're talking about goblins. But a little disclaimer before we get into it, I'm not talking about the player races that are available in Dungeons & Dragons. I'm only talking about the creatures that your adventurers are going to fight and have, some conflict with. So, that said, let's get into a little bit about goblins in Dungeons & Dragons. If you've seen anything fantasy or read anything fantasy, you've probably had an experience with goblins, or at least reading about them. So you know that they are small, kind of grotesque humanoids that are in varying colors of earth shades of greens and browns and blacks and grays. And they're usually out for blood, and they're small, and they're skittish, and they're kind of just annoying little creatures. They're like the rats of the, fantasy villain world. Goblins are categorized as a goblinoid, which they also have several other cousin races, which are the hobgoblins and the bugbears, but we're not going to talk about them today. And really, if you see pictures of bugbears and hobgoblins and goblins themselves, you'll notice that they don't look at all alike. They look very different, but they are connected to a belief system, which we will talk about briefly later on. Goblins in the Dungeons & Dragon world are mainly found in dark caverns, caves, in deep places in the forest, places where the sun doesn't shine a lot. They tend to sleep during the day and come out at night to do their dirty work and live their lives that way. One thing about goblin lairs are they're very complex, usually full of a lot of traps and places where adventurers can get stuck and the goblins won't get stuck. So you have to be careful when dealing with goblins in their home turf. It's a very dangerous place for the unprepared adventurer. One thing you will notice about goblin territory is, first off, there are lots of packs of roaming wolves that are checking out the area and kind of protecting this general vicinity of a goblin lair. You'll also, if you look carefully enough, you'll find goblin outposts in the trees, more just outposts and lookouts where a goblin could sit and watch the unsuspecting travelers going through these areas. If you find yourself in an area inhabited by goblins, you should be very careful of the paths well worn and the places that look pretty safe, because more likely than not, that's a trap or an ambush or something. Because we all know goblins are very keen on collecting slaves and capturing people, so they like to ambush and catch people unawares. The goblins have a couple allies in the rats and the wolves. They have a very long history relationship with both of these animals for various purposes. Mainly the rats are kind of companions and work with the goblins, and they connect on a level where neither of them really like the light. They like to stay in dark, damp places. And with the wolves, they are pack hunters. They use the wolves as mounts, and the goblins also work in packs just like the wolves, so they have a very long history similar to humans and dogs and horses. The goblin belief system is what ties them to the bugbears and the hobgoblins. They believe in a deity called Maglubiet, who is, as goblins picture him, is an 11-foot tall, dark-skinned goblin that is battle-scarred and has flaming eyes. This deity does not gain its followers through adoration and good means, but rather fear. The goblins believe strongly that if they die in battle, they will be sent to Maglubiet's army in another plane of existence where they will fight forever for their god. This is not a good thing for goblins, however, because as we all know, they're kind of lazy and cowardly. A surprising bit of information about goblin and society is that they actually have a very strong caste system. So in real life, if you don't know about caste systems, it's basically a society deems the value of people based on their skill set and where they came from. And it's usually very divided from nobility all the way down to the more peasant classes in their societies. Goblins have a similar structure in their organization, in their tribes. The highest caste of goblin are called the Lashers. These are basically the goblin nobility. They have the most skill set in combat and forging of weaponry and trapping, and all the skills that are necessary to survive in this time period that they're in. Just below the Lashers are the Hunters. These are the combat-oriented goblins. They're usually the best wolf riders in the tribe. They are very good in combat and are very aggressive by nature. And they're usually sent out hunting in packs, and in combat they are the cavalry and also foot soldiers. Just beneath the hunters you have the gatherers. These are more of the farmers, you could say. If goblins were to farm, these would be the ones doing the work. They gather food, they gather supplies from surrounding areas, whether it means stealing or growing. In addition, they also are the ones responsible for going to the traps and gathering the captured people, the slaves they might have, whether they're humans or elves or other sort of humanoid creatures. They are the ones in charge of capturing these, and beasts as well, the wolves and dogs and other animals that they enslave for their uses. And the lowest caste in the Goblin Society is called the Pariah. These are the ones that are basically useless. They clean up after the animals, they clean up after the other goblins, and they also oversee the slaves, because the slaves in Goblin Society are the only category of people that are worse than pariahs. This caste system explains why adventurers can have different types of encounters with these goblins. A goblin encounter with a pariah or a couple of gatherers might be a very quick one-and-done deal where the pariahs or gatherers run away because they are very cowardly, they don't have combat skills, where an encounter with hunters could be a very dangerous situation, as hunters can be very aggressive. All in all, understanding Goblin Society can help you as a game master and your players as adventurers into knowing what's safe to do, what is the best way to approach a goblin situation, and how you can survive even the most dangerous goblin attacks. In a lot of Dungeons & Dragons games, players encounter goblins in the earliest stages of the games, where these creatures can be very formidable in a large group. So keep that in mind as you're running your game. If you're going to introduce goblins, they can be dangerous, but more likely it's just for players to wet their teeth and get things going on their own game. That's been Goblins. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you liked all these videos that I've been doing lately, please hit the subscribe button and come back next time for more Dungeons & Dragons and role-playing game videos. I've been Richard Quiner, and thank you for watching.